Imagine a world with no need for parking. A world where cars drive themselves and drop people off at their destinations. What would that look like? Or rather, what do you want it to look like?
Parking is such a pervasive part of the urban landscape. We rarely take time to think about what effect those acres of asphalt and idle cars have on social interactions. Team Community's goal was to understand how existing alternatives to street parking are currently influencing surrounding communities, and how finding alternative uses for parking spaces could build strong communities in the future.
A growing trend in urban planning could provide some answers. Starting as temporary occupations of parking spaces by activists in San Francisco, parklets, or mini parks that occupy 1 or 2 parking spaces, have spread throughout California. This trend can provide a vision of what a transition away from car-centric streetscapes might look like. Downtown San Jose's South First Street provides an ideal research setting for studying this phenomenon. This street contains several examples of parklets. Most sit adjacent to businesses, providing places for their patrons to sit outside. We spoke with people about their thoughts on parklets, using the street-side setting as a prompt for our questions. We asked our participants what they would build in place of street parking if they were in charge of urban development. Through their responses, we were able to understand what personal values are reflected in their visions for public spaces.
Many participants love the parklets, and some even make the trip to South First Street specifically to spend time in them. Others were concerned about removing street parking for the sake of a trend. Aside from a few self-described car people, most people we talked to were willing to make the trade-off between losing a parking space and gaining a park. People spoke about creating outdoor spaces for safe, inclusive, walkable streets, allowing them to be more active in public life, like spaces for art exhibits, dog parks, bike paths, community gardens, and playgrounds. In the midst of so much optimism and support for creating more open public spaces, it's important to understand who may be excluded from places like parklets. One respondent worried that parklets could attract the wrong crowd, and preferred that they cater to paying customers only. One business owner accepted that loitering was inevitable, and another owner admitted that the parklet near his business was designed to be comfortable but not too comfortable, as this would encourage people staying too long.
One participant expressed concern that free parking is increasingly being replaced by expensive private garages. The side effects of infrastructural changes like these can fall disproportionately onto the shoulders of lower-income people, who may have to pay a considerable percentage of their weekly earnings for something like a parking ticket. Another person was disappointed in the lack of coffee shops in some parts of San Jose. In contrast to his home country of Germany, he found few locations where people could interact within walking distance of where he was staying.
Our interviews provided a window into larger trends toward re-urbanization, a decrease in car ownership, and efforts to undo some of the isolating antisocial effects automobiles have had on American cities. Currently, the parklets in downtown San Jose are built and maintained by adjacent businesses. Creating spaces that support all members of the community, particularly those that are low income or houseless, would involve moving beyond the limits of this consumer-oriented model. Like culture, communities are adaptive. They adjust to environmental changes, but also have the ability to change the environment to better suit their needs. If community organizations adopt a parking spot, they can create inclusive community-building public resources.
Based on our participants' responses, we've identified a few ideas for community-building parking alternatives. Downtown San Jose occasionally hosts farmers markets, festivals, and events like the South First Friday Art Walk, but these are only temporary venues for artists and vendors. Parking spaces could be converted into more permanent studio and performance spaces for visual artists, craftspeople, and musicians to affordably practice and sell their work.
Taking a cue from early parklet experiments, asphalt can be converted into community gardens, flower beds, and mini parks. These provide aesthetic and environmental benefits while offering spaces for people to gather and enjoy California's great weather. In addition, gardening can encourage teamwork, natural sciences education, and healthy eating habits while providing fresh produce for families that could not otherwise afford them.
Many participants asked for more child and pet-friendly spaces in the form of playgrounds, pet relief areas, and dog parks. However, these active spaces don't have to be limited to use by kids and pet owners. One respondent suggested an exercise circuit that wound through city streets. Another suggestion was to bring in artists to create interactive installations or build all-ages playgrounds, encouraging active lifestyles.
Some people were concerned with Silicon Valley's skyrocketing rents and suggested that parking spaces could be converted into affordable housing. Other cities have already experimented with this concept. One project involved filling spaces in multi-story parking garages with tiny homes for student housing.
Unfortunately, bringing amenities like these to urban areas can result in gentrification, where rents and general costs of living rise beyond what lower-income residents and small businesses can afford, forcing them from the area. Through a participatory planning process, we hope to ensure that the solutions we propose do not simply create nice places for the privileged few, but nice places for everyone. The urban environment is a contested space. Considerable power and influence are necessary to change it. The only way to make sure that future changes to the urban environment reflect the needs of disempowered groups is to seek out and incorporate their views at every stage of the design process.
Anthropologists can play a crucial role in facilitating an open and collaborative planning process. By serving as mediators, they can help a diverse group of stakeholders to constructively debate and push past conflicts by recognizing common goals. Team Community has found that research into parklets is a valuable area of inquiry to understand how public spaces reflect community values and how these spaces can be designed to increase quality of life. On South First Street, the overwhelmingly positive responses to parklets show that people feel parking spaces could be better used as public community spaces where they can escape the routine, mundane, and isolating effects of urban or suburban settings.
You better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.